So thanks for joining us, everybody. 13840 Denton Drive investors, myself, Nick, here's Scott. We're here to give you our November 2025 update that we're really excited about. So just financial snapshot, similar to previous updates, cash flow at the properties is going well. We initially did not commit to a cash on cash, but we wanted to send out the distributions because the property is performing well. So 2.75 annualized cash on cash. We paid out 4 different distributions. Last one paid out in October. We just scheduled the November payment. You should have gotten notifications on that today. And this is kind of administrative thing. Anyone that is on Plaid, we sent 2 emails. Plaid is a connection between your bank account and the system. It's had a lot of issues. So we're trying to get everyone off Plaid and just use an ACH. So a bunch of you have already updated your information in the system, which is great. The people that have not done that, if you remember you use Plaid or if you got one of these emails, please go in and change that because it causes issues. There was an AWS server issue. AWS is owned by Amazon. There was a server issue. It caused a few investors not to get their distributions. So we just want to get off Plaid. It caused issues. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I can walk you through that process to get you off. So Scott's going to walk you through the update of the BOV process that we've gone through with the brokers.
Yeah, so we've, as you see here, we've had some strong interest from our Crexi, LoopNet campaigns. We've also done a lot of work ourselves, just going through and actually visiting, neighborhood properties and so forth. Most of the industry groups we're talking to want to buy versus lease. There are some leasing parties, no one that's really stepped up at this point. The owner user interest has been kind of light, as you see there. Just the majority of the interest has been from investors, which we really did expect, quite honestly. Because we thought we priced it at a level or had a suggested price that would scare most of them off. Actually, hasn't been the case. We got 4 LOIs, including one that came since the last update. 2 of those would get us to our base case scenario, which is a 25% IRR and 1-2 equity multiple. As I mentioned before, really a big reason for putting this out there ourselves, seeing if we could sell it, but really what we're going to do is test the market. Best way to find out what the property's worth is stick it out there and see what bounces back, right? So we feel pretty confident that based on the investor interest, things worth at least $4 million, which is our base case, a little over $4 million. With our and all those are investors. We think with some of the brokers we've talked to that have got some really deep connections within the community, they'll be able to find those owner users that rather come in and buy the deal. Especially with SBA financing, they can come, someone can come in and 20% down, be at a level where they're not too far off of what they would pay for rent. So it makes a lot of sense for an owner user to buy that thing. We've been sending out email campaigns through Crexi, LoopNet. Also, in general, what we've been doing is getting lists of various user types. So plumbers, electricians, concrete companies, other roofing companies, the obvious ones, sending emails to the ownership, to the senior level executives, following up with phone calls when appropriate. Tepid interest, some interest here and there. We actually had a couple of campaigns we called Driving for Buyers, where me, Nick, and Kevin all went out and started hitting buildings in the neighborhood, really within a 1 or 2 mile radius, that were really tried to find tenants that were expiring that wanted to buy their building, buy a building in their next occupancy. Got some great intel from there. Found some one guy that actually used to own the building, had some interest, just the building wasn't right for one reason or another, too big. They were such a low rent, they weren't willing to go quite as high as we are on as we want on our sale. But it's been going well. I think we did do a social media listing just to test it out. LinkedIn had a potential buyer that came in through that. Didn't submit an offer, but it was an interesting exercise just to see how that worked. As far as the brokers, we've talked to 5 brokers now. We've actually talked to a few more, but 5 that we actually interviewed. Got the BOVs from all of them, the presentations. We've narrowed that down to 2. 2 really solid groups that we think that will do a good job for us. Really, the thing we're looking for is anybody. I mean, look, we were doing a good amount of the work that most brokers are going to do. You stick it on LoopNet, stick it on Crexi, you talk to some people. What we're trying to do is find brokers that actually know all the players in the marketplace, know whose leases are expiring, have that big database of tenants that might be candidates, and can reach and have got those solid connections with executives of those companies. And we think we've narrowed it down to 2 groups that are going to actually do the work, not just be lazy brokers. We will we hope to have those we're interview those tomorrow and Thursday. Make a decision by Monday and get somebody hired. So we expect this to go pretty quick. As you see here, we've got one of the sample BOVs from Holt Lunsford. They're a pretty solid group, focusing mainly on Dallas Fort Worth. You see the BOVs and the pricing range from a high of 220, which we think was baloney, to the low 160.
It was from these guys. These guys
Yep.
were, I think, they're in the institutional space. I think they kind of played us for suckers that we didn't know what we were doing and try to sell us a bill of goods. So that
Yeah.
price is too high.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, we don't think that's really a viable price. I mean, maybe there's somebody out there, doubtful. We don't want to wait 2 years for that person to come up, and that's don't think that's never going to happen. There aren't many alternatives, but there's some. I mean, the 220, a lot of people will just lease. Anyway, median price 176 a foot, so we're listing at 4.4 million. From a lease standpoint, the minimum lease quote was $10.50 all the way up to $13. $11.95 is where that medium came in. I believe we agreed to list it at I think we're in the 12s, right? Nick,
Yeah, 1285 maybe.
1285 is where, so we're going to list it at a slightly higher price for the lease purposes, just because we prefer to sell it. If you get 1285 on rent, frankly, we'll be really good.
We kind of strategically made it a little bit higher than we thought market would be to push people into the sale versus the lease. And that's kind of the feedback we got from the brokers too.
Exactly. So that's the goal. Get a lot of great intel from talking to all these brokers. As you see here, just no buildings in the market like ours. I mean, we've got a bit of a unicorn. Are there weaknesses? Sure. 14-foot clear height is a negative. It's not fatal. We're not going to get a distribution company, for instance, that needs to have a high clear height to stack 4 pallets high. But we'll get a manufacturing company. We'll get there are all kinds of users that can use that building with that size range, and more importantly, that low clear height's offset by the yard space. So we got roughly an acre or so of that yard space. We can get an extra $2 a foot for the yard. So that's as we kind of already knew, that was sort of the strength on this deal. We don't have sprinklers. It's a drawback. A chance we could have to put sprinklers in if we do lease it, but maybe not. If we find another roofing company, they can step right in, same use. From what we've been told, we've not confirmed this. We think that the new tenant could just come in under the same use and it will still be grandfathered. Um, Came up with some great new ideas for listing from these brokers. The putting a big banner. A lot of you are not from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but we get the Dart rail line between our building and Denton Drive. Denton Drive is a pretty major north-south for particularly for the industrial users and tenants in this area. You can see our building clearly from there. We think we're going to put a for sale and lease banner on the side of the building, and that'll draw attention to it. Ingress and egress, that was quoted as one of the negatives for a building. It's not really that bad, but you got to know how it works. And so we're going to highlight that on the marketing material, make it easier. We're also going to go ahead and get an architect to draw a more accurate floor plan with pillar spacing, all the measurements, as well for the doors, which I think will help bring in some tenants, really answer some questions right away. Also, everybody operates on email. I'm a big believer, and I think Nick is as well, that let's do what others aren't. So everybody's marketing via email. Sure, everybody that's listening to this gets tons of emails, and you end up deleting most of them. Every once in a while, one will catch your eye, but the thought being, you got to touch these prospects as many places as you can. So our idea is to touch them with the signage, touch them with emails, but also send out postcards, for old-fashioned snail mail. And most brokers don't do that anymore these days. So I think that, in conjunction with the other touch points we're using, as well as phone calls, we're going to find a solid buyer for this thing.
Thanks, Scott. So just to wrap it up, like Scott said, we're in the process. We went through. So by the way, just to kind of take a step back, BOV stands for broker opinion of value. So they bring us a value, telling us how much it's worth. It's kind of the metrics that Scott showed, but they're also pitching why we should pick them as a broker to list our property. So we went through the process, 6 different broker shops. We narrowed down to 2. Really focused on local market expertise, willing to negotiate fees and terms. So we basically have these 2, maybe 3 broker shops getting their broker agreement and looking at the details and negotiating the terms, see how much the fees are, and use them kind of against each other to negotiate. So it's been a really good process. And then the other criteria that we're using is really good ideas for the listing. So you saw that summary, that last set of bullet points that Scott talked to. Got some really good ideas, some things that we weren't necessarily doing, that we will do. We'll have this new broker that we're picking, do those things. Our plan is to pick a broker before Thanksgiving. Like Scott said, we have the call tomorrow with the brokers, kind of final broker interview, who we pick. We take it off the market. We have our listing, Crexi listing, LoopNet listing, take it off the market, and then relist with the broker after Thanksgiving. We feel we're in a really good spot right now. Most of you don't know how these broker listing agreements work, but there's an exclusion list. So we're going to add everybody that submitted an LOI to the exclusion list and basically get lower fees on that particular buyer if we potentially go with that buyer. And so, like we said, we have offers right around 4 million. It gets us to the base case of 1.2, 25% IRR. But we're shooting for higher returns by going through a broker. So they got to hit that hurdle, including their fee, to kind of sell to their buyers. So they'll be incentivized that way. So we feel like we're in a really good spot. There's a really good learning exercise kind of going through this. It went better than planned, getting kind of these $4 million offers through investors. We need that perfect owner user that looks at the yard space and say, yes, we need this yard space. They're going to pay the highest premium. We had a few owner users go through here and look at the yard space and say, oh, I can turn that into a pickleball court, or I can turn that into a playground. Those guys aren't a good fit for this property. We need these guys that really need that yard space, outside fenced yard space, to pay the maximum price. And we're hoping that the brokers, through their contacts, existing tenants, looking at lease expirations, can get that perfect owner user to pay the highest price. So that's it. That's our update. Really excited. We'll let you know how it goes with the broker listing. Again, grateful for all of you for investing in this deal and looking to see if we can make this a grand slam. Thank you.
Yeah. If anybody has any questions, reach out to either one of us.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.